Okay, so getting back into our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to the Fall of the Mutant story arc or crossover, we do jump back over to Uncanny X-Men number 223 and 224. Now you're probably wondering, hey Fresh, we already have been covering Fall of the Mutants. Yes, you are correct. The only difference is that when it comes to Fall of the Mutants, it's not really a proper crossover. So you do have three different X-Men teams, X-Men, X-Factor, and also New Mutants, but the three teams, they don't even cross over in this supposed crossover or this supposed X-Men event. Each X-Men team is handling their own certain kind of problems. And so when it comes to X-Factor, their main problem was dealing with Apocalypse in Manhattan. When it comes to the X-Men, well, their main problem is technically taking place in San Francisco with the idea of finding Madeline Pryor. Now remember, around this time, Madeline Pryor was married to Cyclops. And so over in X Factor Comics, he has no idea that his wife is even alive. But she is. But here's the thing. She's now wondering where is their son? And that would be Nathaniel Summers. Of course, that would be Cable down the road. But we have no idea where he is at, and neither does she. But luckily for her, the X-Men were able to save her from the Marauders. And so now the question is, where do we go next after bringing in somebody who's now looking for their son? And so getting into the opening pages of Uncanny X-Men number 223, we do pick up with Crimson Commando and Stonewall joining Freedom Force. Now remember, these are two characters we saw in Uncanny X-Men number 215 and 216. In that two-part story arc, we had learned that these two guys were World War II superheroes. But after the war had ended, they were forced to retire. The problem was they realized the world still needed them. And so they came out of retirement and began to use their powers to hunt down bad people. Now, they would kidnap people and then release those people in the forest to actually hunt them down. Now, they did that to Storm, but Storm was able to convince them that what they were doing was actually wrong. And so they turned themselves in over to law enforcement. Now, we kind of find out they're joining Freedom Force now. Now, remember, Freedom Force was a team we saw in the earlier parts of our coverage over the X-Men that was put together by the government as a way to take care of different problems around the world, especially in America. Now, when it came to Freedom Force, it was just Mystique's old team, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, being relabeled with a new name and working for the government. So you're talking about Mystique, Blob, Pyro, Avalanche, and Destiny all now working for the government, but now being introduced to their two new members. We also kind of find out the third person of the original group we saw back in Uncanny X-Men number 215 and 216 is also alive, and that would be the Super Saber. And we saw for a short period of time in that two-part story arc, we believe that he was dead, but kind of find out here that he is alive and he's also joining the team. Now, out of nowhere, you have Destiny scream. And when she screams, Mystique gets very worried because we have to remember, even way back then in the 1980s, Mystique and Destiny were in a relationship with one another. But you have Destiny try to use her abilities to see possible futures of what happens to Rogue. But apparently, the only thing she sees is pure darkness. The idea of the X-Men are no longer going to be around. Like, she was focusing on Rogue, but once she could not see Rogue, she tried other members of the team. But as well, she could not see their future, which means the X-Men could possibly die down the road. And so then we check in with Storm, and we currently get reminded that she's on a spirit walk with a character known as Naze. Now, we learned in our last video that this is not Naze at all. this is some other kind of being pretending to be Naze as a way to do something horrible to Storm and possibly Forge down the road. Because the original Naze was somebody who taught Forge magic to hopefully use that magic to fight against a demonic being known as the Adversary. Now remember, in our last video, Storm was trying to find Forge to hopefully have her powers given back to her. She was trying to regain her powers, but unfortunately Forge had disappeared. And so you had this fake Naze tell Storm that he is somewhere in the Grand Canyon, and they're walking around trying to find Forge to hopefully help him, because apparently Forge is being controlled by that demonic being, again, better known as the Adversary. And so you have Storm just doing her best to keep pushing forward. But Naze, the fake Naze, is now pretending to be seriously ill, to the point where now Storm is gonna have to take care of him. Now, we also cannot forget that technically tension is high right now between humans and mutants, because the last few story arcs by Chris Claremont, he's trying to paint the picture that you have more and more humans beginning to hate on the mutant race. And this is beginning the process of new groups popping up left and right to find new ways to actually attack the mutants. Now, this one page is really showing the racism when it comes to the humans who are hating on mutants. And you actually have people trying to convince them like, hey, what you are doing is wrong. The idea of hating on mutants. But now you have more and more humans no longer caring. We did jump over to the X-Men, and when we do, we see them in San Francisco. Now, when it comes to the X-Men, they're sticking around here because 1, they had just saved Madeline Pryor. 2, they're wondering what are their next moves. And 3, let's not forget, the X-Men are still trying to paint this picture of the idea that they are dead right now to the entire world. They want the world to believe they are no longer alive. Either way, you have the X-Men also training in this old prison. Now, we have to remember that most of the X-Men around this time are new members. Longshot, Dazzler, Psylocke. Now, Rogue been on the team for a while, but she's still labeled as a new person because most of the old team members are injured, have left the team, are currently on a different team. And so now Wolverine is in charge of the X-Men until Storm is able to come back and retake her position. But this is also Wolverine wanting to teach the new X-Men team members, hey guys, listen, fighting is very important. And not the idea of how to fight, but to know when you actually won a fight. Because you have Rogue thinking that she was able to take down Wolverine so easily. But once he's able to get the upper hand on her and show her that she got too cocky, that she always needs to be on her toes, you have the other team members realize what Wolverine is trying to teach them. Because out there in the real battle scene, you're not going to have someone just give up so easily. They're going to play dirty until you are able to actually win. We did jump over to Madeline Pryor. And this is really important for future story arcs down the road, especially the Inferno story arc we're going to cover here in a couple of weeks or months. Either way, when it comes to Madeline Pryor, she's wondering why her husband has not been looking for her. Now, what she does not know, he has been trying to find her and their son. But unfortunately for Cyclops, he was told that Madeline and their son had never existed at all. Now, we already know that is a huge fat lie. But for Cyclops, he's kind of wondering, okay, if I'm being told one thing, then how in the world I'm going to prove that they are all wrong, that she is alive? How can I find her? How can I find our son? And so that is the big issue. But also for Madeline, she's wondering, where is her son? Because everybody she goes to, they're telling her, hey, we have no records of a child named Nathaniel Summers at all, which means you have to be lying to us, or you have gone crazy in the head and believed that you had a son. And so you have Havoc just, running by, but he sees Madeline on a cliff and thinking that she is about to commit suicide. And so then we jump over to Storm and Naze. Now, when we do, you have Storm beginning the process of trying to help take care of Naze. But she does give him some medicine. Now, when it comes to the medicine, it's supposed to help him fight against the poisoning that he had received in our last video. Now, right before he's able to drink some of the medicine, he does ask Storm to also drink some of the medicine as well, just in case she was also poisoned like he was in our last video. So she does take the medicine, but this begins one heck of a mind trip for Storm, because out of nowhere, you have a huge bear appear. And this is really a huge bear, but Storm cannot do much to it because she does not have her powers. She needs to find Forge to not just help Forge out, but to also have Forge give her powers back so that she can be an X-Men again, a true X-Men again. But either way, once she's able to lose the bear, she then runs into a huge snake. And again, she's trying her best to fight against the snake. But while fighting against the snake, she realized the weather has changed. It was a sunny day, but now it's a full-on blizzard. And so after getting rid of the snake and tries her best to climb away from all the fighting she had just done with the bear and snake, she realized behind her it's no longer a blizzard. Matter of fact, the ground behind her now turned into some kind of battlefield for some kind of war, possibly the Vietnam War. And the question is, why? Now, when she turns around and looks at the very top of the cliff, she sees Forge. And so once she finds Forge, she realized that this is an evil Forge who is talking about the idea of helping out the adversary. And when it comes to Storm being around, she could be the final piece to help him actually achieve that goal. Now, you do have Storm out of nowhere being able to stab Forge, which of course does kill him. But after he is supposedly dead, we come to find out that this was just a vision, a whole mind trip to help Storm realize that she has to kill off Forge, because if she doesn't, Forge could be the reason why the adversary arrives in the real world, and that would be a huge problem. Now again, that is what Naze wants, or this fake Naze wants, because after you have Storm tell Naze, I realize I have to kill Forge to save the world, Homeboy's just smiling creepily behind her, telling us, yeah, he's actually evil. And so getting back over to Madeline Pryor, well, we kind of find out that she was about to commit suicide, but luckily for her, Havoc stopped her, because you have Havoc say, listen, don't do this, because if you believe that your son is still alive and we know that he has to be alive, don't do this. You want to be there for your son once we are able to find him. Yes, my brother may have failed you, but let's not fail your son here. And if you are looking for people to care for you, love you, then look at the X-Men, because we are a family. And that is this chapter, but this also could be the beginning of Havoc possibly falling in love with Madeline Pryor. And so when we jump into Uncanny X-Men number 224, we do pick up with Storm saying goodbye to Naze. Now, when it comes to this goodbye, it's really more Naze saying, the final part of this spirit walk is really up to you. If you want to be able to stop Forge, it all comes down to you. Now, before Storm leaves, she does ask one question. She wants to know more about the adversary. Now, when it comes to Naze, he does not really dive much into the actual origin of the character, but he does tell Storm that when it comes to Adversary, his main goal is, again, to recreate reality. And the reason why? Because he is a trickster. And sometimes tricksters love the idea of pulling strings. Unfortunately, the strings that he is pulling are the lives of innocent people. But when it comes to Adversary, he's really big on recreating the universe in his own image. And once he gets bored in what he had created, he tries to do something new. He tries to change things up because that is who he is. Either way, you didn't have Naze kiss Storm. Now, we're left to believe the reason why he did this because he had grew a bond with her. But at the same time, this is not really Naze. It's some demonic being that is pretending to be him. Now, you also have Storm kind of take that kiss to heart, which I kind of find a tad bit weird. And the only reason why, because she admitted earlier she still has feelings for Forge. But here you are now kissing the man who's kind of like a father to him, even though we know it's not really Naze. Either way, Storm walks away to go on the final part of her spirit walk. And so we then pick up with Freedom Force. Really, we pick up with Valerie Cooper, the person in charge of the actual team. Now, when it comes to Valerie, she's having a press conference about a new law that's about to come out saying that anyone who has superhuman abilities has to register with the American government, especially mutants. Now, when it comes to Valerie, she is the president's national security advisor. That is a very important role and why she is the leader of Freedom Force. But with that role, she began to bring up the problem of the mutant race, because you do have mutants out there that are very dangerous. And matter of fact, she used the battle between the X-Men and the Marauders in her last video as an example of why mutants are dangerous. Because thanks to that battle, you did have a lot of innocent people be affected by that battle, which was a huge problem for her. And so now this law is being made and she's trying to push more and more to her agenda of, hey, mutants are dangerous and we need some better laws in place. Now we do jump over to Rogue, and when we do, you have Rogue being confronted by Mystique. Now, this is Mystique telling Rogue what Destiny saw when it came to her visions, about the idea of all the different kind of futures showed that the X-Men are going to die, including Rogue. And now let's not forget, Mystique and Destiny, they adopted Rogue. They kind of raised her for a short period of time. And so this is Mystique saying, hey Rogue, listen, you're my daughter, and my wife, our girlfriend, Destiny, just told me that she saw different kinds of futures where you are possibly dead, and I cannot accept that. So leave the X-Men and come with me. But you have Rogue say no. And so Rogue walks away. Now, before Rogue walks away, you have Mystique say, listen, I know you are going to die because the X-Men are going to go to Dallas. Something in Dallas is about to happen. And when it does, you are going to die. But Rogue continues to walk away. And so then you have the X-Men reunite at a prison they're currently using as their base. Now, when everyone comes together, you have Rogue inform everyone what Mystique had just told her when it came to Destiny's visions, about the idea that if the X-Men go to Dallas, they could die. Now, when it comes to Wolverine, he says, I've known Destiny for a while now, and I've seen sometimes where she has been wrong. So we honestly cannot believe right off the bat what she is saying could actually happen. But at the same time, it's Wolverine saying we still got to be careful, because we still got 3 team members who are currently injured, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and also Kitty Pryde, but also Storm is gone as well. So we're kind of short-staffed here when it comes to the X-Men. So if we go to Dallas, we got to be on our A game here. And so you have the team agree to head over there, and they also take Madeline Pryor with her. Now, you're probably wondering, why take her with you guys? She has no powers. Well, if they leave her alone, there's the possibility of the Marauders coming back after her all over again. And so then we jump over to Storm. Now, when we do, you have Storm on the final part of her spirit walk, and she sees all these different kinds of demons. And we're left to believe that these demons are coming from the reality where the adversary is from. And so you have Storm trying her best to kill off these demons left and right, left and right. But once she's able to get through all of them, she finds Forge. Now, Forge is very confused on why in the world is Storm there for. But before he is able to get an answer from her, she stabs him. She stabs him right in the chest. And he tells Storm, I was not trying to open up a portal to allow the adversary into our reality. I was trying to close the portal that was already opened. And once you have Storm realize that Forge was telling the truth, it's too late. The portal is now open. And not Naze, because honestly, it's not him at all, but the person that she believed it was, he appears to show her, hey, you were tricked by me. You believed it was really Naze, but I'm not Naze, I'm somebody else. But thanks to Forge no longer being able to close the portal, now the real fun can begin. And you have him say, you two were the only ones who could stop me. But now, with y'all out of my way, it's game time now. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. And then we're going to jump right back into the Fall of the Mutant story arc. With that being said, guys, have a good day. Later.